Welcome to Arguing Art. I'm Adam Sterner, and this is Micah Luke. And in this series, on the sliding scale of art, we are talking about how to quantify the success of a work of art.
All right, so this is not going to be an easy one. We ran into a lot of problems just determining what we have to talk about and trying to lay out these arguments for you guys. I suppose the first thing we should do is explain what a thought experiment is.
Sure. A thought experiment is basically taking what you're trying to examine and placing it into a perfect world. You are the master of time and space, the master of the universe, if you will.
All He-Man style. But yeah, you get it. You control the world. Mm-hmm. So what we talk about actually doing obviously is not practical. You can't show it to every single person in the world. But in a thought experiment, yeah, you can. You know. So that's the cool thing about thought experiments. All right, there's two things that we have to lay out or that we have to discuss even before we can start discussing the arguments. So what we're doing is we're determining if a piece is successful or unsuccessful. So when you look at that painting or whatever, you can say that is a successful work or that sculpture is unsuccessful.
And the way that you would do that is by identifying if the artist's original intent, what he's intending to communicate and express, is getting through to the viewer. So that would be successful or unsuccessful.
Right. And so that's how we're going to define success for this instance, or this discussion, I guess. But even right there, we run into our first complication.
Yes.
Because in the message, there's basically two things. There's the facts of the message, and the concept. So if you're looking at a piece that you get, you understand that this is about classicism and the ruling class getting down on the lower class. You get that concept. Mm-hmm. You may not understand, or you may not get that it's actually about the Roman upper class holding down the Roman lower class, the plebeians. You may not get that, but you still get the concept, even though you don't get the full story. So does that count? Is that a case of success?
Sure. Well, and then you open an even bigger can of worms in that if they understand, yes, the concept, but if they're not getting the emotions or the feelings from it, well, then that communication hasn't been completely successful either.
Yeah, that's a good point. But though, if you tell me, like using verbal,
sure.
If you say, Micah, you should be angry about this, and I just don't feel angry about whatever issue it is.
Sure.
That doesn't mean that I don't get what you're trying to say.
Sure.
It just means I don't agree with it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So in the same instance, you could look at this classist painting and get that it's about classicism and, getting down to the lower class. But I think you could agree with it I think you could disagree with it.
Okay.
Like with the emotions. So for some people that should entice angry, you understand what it's trying to say, but you're upper class, so it makes you feel good.
Sure.
But does that mean that you don't get it?
Well,
is that unsuccessful then?
If you don't get the emotions?
No, what I'm saying is if you don't feel the emotions that the artist wants you to feel, but you still get his concept, what he's trying to say.
Okay.
Much like if you tell me to feel angry about something, but I don't feel angry about it, I still get what you're trying to say. I just disagree.
Okay.
You see where I'm going with that?
I do, but...
This is why it's so freaking tough. That's not even something we discussed beforehand.
No, it's not, but you run into a perfect situation of, sure, you might understand that you're supposed to be feeling angry, but if you're not feeling angry and all you're understanding is that it's a class struggle and you're supposed to be angry about, then you simply have communication or graphic design that's presenting you with information rather than presenting you with any type of artwork.
Yeah, but that artwork can still say you should feel angry, right? Because that's what it's supposed to entice, is that angry out of you.
Most likely.
So, and that's what I'm saying is that if so it tries to entice angry out of me, but that's not my emotions about that. Like my emotions don't agree with him.
Sure.
What would be another example? Say like a battle painting or something,
Yeah.
some people would see that, and this could be entirely the artist's intent. Say he wants to entice that sense of patriotism.
Okay.
Okay, so people look at this, they say, yes, I feel patriotic about France, like, the Libertad, the whole thing. So maybe that's the painting, Lady Liberty.
Okay.
So people feel patriotic. And then someone else might come along and say, I see it, I get that it's a patriotic painting, but I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with patriotism and war.
Okay.
Maybe they're a pacifist or a conscientious object or something like that.
Well, then likely you're not successfully communicating your message to them. If they're not feeling the emotion, they get the message, but they're not getting the emotion, which means they're not an ideal candidate for that piece, and they're not experiencing it the way that the author has intended them to experience it, and therefore they're only getting half of the communication.
See, we might have to discuss this one more so that we don't, off the air, so we don't run out of time.
Yep.
But basically the question comes down then is the difference between the fact, understanding the fact, the concept, and I suppose we'll add in the emotion there, because those are almost three different things then.
Yes. Yep, the fact, the concept, and the emotion. And the emotion can be part of the concept or based on the fact.
Yep. And then the other thing, and we're running short on time already, we're just on the first one. The moment of consideration. When do you consider whether this piece is successful or not? Do you at creation, at the moment that it's been created, do you say, all right, now everybody here in the world, here's this piece, do you get it? Or do you consider Impressionism only in the time period of Impressionism? Or do you consider it whatever?
From creation to the end of time.
To the end of time, until aliens come down and look at it and go, you know what, I like that. Yep. I get the concept, I just don't agree with the emotions.
And then you fall into your other situation of, okay, when are you showing it? Well, how many people have to understand or agree with it before you would consider it successful? If you're looking at...
And then finally we're at the quantifiable point, which is what we first intended to.
Which was what this series was on. So we have the... well, not the series, this episode.
This episode, yeah.
So the quantifiable part.
Well, you could do that on like a percentage, right? You could say that if over 50% of the people who view it get it, then it's successful. Because it's more often successful than unsuccessful.
Yes. Or you could base it on an individual experience, which sounds, it's a very much a slippery slope because you're opening the whole world and every single piece to somebody possibly seeing it as art at some point in time, which could mean everything would be art, but it protects you from a certain situation of, say, you show it to 6 billion people, 2 billion people fully understand and feel it, and the other 4 billion don't.
Right.
Well, mathematically it's been very unsuccessful, but you still have 2 billion people that completely agree with it.
This is why this one sucks. It's tough, Okay, well let's end it there before we get too far over time or anything like that. You gotta come help us out with this one. It's not an easy one. It's a fun one, but it made my head hurt last night when we were talking about it, and I had to pop a couple pills this morning to take care of that. Come to arguingart.com. Leave your comments, your ratings, your discussion. We want to hear what's your input on this, about the difference between getting the fact, the concept, and versus the emotion. Do you need to get all three? At what point is it successful? When do you consider the artwork? How would you quantify it? Would you do a percentage? Would you do it on pure numbers game? What are your answers? What are your takes on that? If you're watching us on one of the video servers, definitely come over and check us out at arguingart.com.
We appreciate each and every one of your comments and all of your input. Thanks for watching.